Good afternoon to all of our merry Marvelites. Welcome to a special edition of Marvel Movie Talk. As always, I'm Christian Blatt. Excited to be joined, I think for the first time in this show, by two people in a rectangle next to me. Most of you who are, I guess you may know my friend Alexa Cappiello if you're a fan of the Black Cast, and you should be.
An episode of the Black Cast. What was it, like 3 weeks ago or so?
Just very recently, you were on the Black Cast. We did a show called Retro Anatomy of a Movie, and we were on the Legion panel together. And I even got you to come on Marvel Movie Talk once, where you made a lot of enemies. You made a lot of enemies.
I was talking about.
What did you do?
Well, I basically said that the MCU movies lost steam, and that was not something to say on a Marvel podcast. Yeah, they did. They lost steam for me, and I had to explain my position and why. But I did also say that they got better, and also, I mean, we both worked on Wandavision, but that aside, I thought this show was awesome, and I'm like rejuvenated when it comes to my love for Marvel cinema.
And the we in the rectangle with Alexa is Kait Cornuelle. So thank you for joining us. And yes, it's very exciting. I knew before the show even started, I knew that Alexa had worked on set, and Kait, you worked on set a little bit more. So why don't each of you explain?
A lot more. She worked on this on WandaVision a lot more than I did, but we both roped her in. She wrote me in, and I'm actually very grateful that she did. At first, I was like, "Oh no, those hours."
She's like, "What time do you wake up in the morning?"
She's like, 4:30 in the morning. Smile, and I'm like, do I what?
Just permanently on my face because anytime someone has ideas, I'm just like, yeah.
Well, then, Kait, let's let you start and explain what you did, how long you did it, and just sort of what it entailed on WandaVision.
So I actually worked for Marvel previously. I worked on Guardians 2, Infinity War, and Endgame. And at that point, most of Marvel had started shooting and was kind of fully transitioning, with the exception of Captain Marvel, into filming out of Atlanta, which is where a lot of like Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision started shooting. And then the pandemic hit. And so they got most of what they needed shot of the interiors done at studio. And then they had to pause. And then they're like, are we coming back? And so I got really lucky that a Marvel contact went, they are coming back. They're filming here. And I got the call in mid-August to start at the end of August. And we finished the additional shooting or continuation of shooting up until the end of October, and then into a little bit of November for wrap out. And so I started end of August, and I roped Alexa in probably near the end of October to finish the last week and a half.
What specifically was it that you did on this show, and if it differed what you did from other show from the previous movies, feel free to talk about that.
Yeah, so on previous movies, I was a production assistant, and I worked out of the costume department, that's a whole another bag. And but on this show, I was health and safety, so I was in charge of making sure that everyone was safe so that we could continue working, because the worst possible scenario was we get shut down and lose 2 weeks of work. And we just wanted to get the show out because they had already projected, we're going to have new shows next year, and we were running out of time. So our department was normally on health and safety on a show. You have one health and safety manager that is in charge of multiple shows. And because of COVID, it's become its own department working with production to make sure everything runs cohesively and everyone is working safely, which requires a little bit of knowledge of the protocol itself, not only from the national, the state, and the city level, but also how to work with, Disney has all their own rules based off of that, because they really don't want to get shut down. because they want to keep providing content for everybody. And we have a lot. They had a lot announced that they want to keep making. And so there was about, at our height, like 14 of us on set, like monitoring everything.
Wow. Yeah.
And we had 2 different units on WandaVision too. We split up about halfway through the shoot. So most of the last 2 episodes of WandaVision, basically from when Agatha says, "I know what you are," up until the end, all takes place as like the final boss fight. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's like, I think that's actually the last episode. Sorry, Marvel fans. Sorry. They all blend together. And then from that point on, we split up into basically 2 units, whereas, Alexa was mostly on first and I was mostly on second. So she was watching actors performing all those scenes and I would come in and then do all the stunts. So unit 2 was all stunt work and unit 1 was all performance. All, because they do a lot of their own stunts as well.
Right. So when the show resumed at the end of August, what was still left to be filmed? Was it specific things for all the episodes? Was it really just towards the back half of the series, or what actually needed to be completed?
A lot of the exteriors needed to be completed, and because they weren't shooting any they planned to shoot everything in Atlanta, and then they had to figure out how to shoot everything here. So they had to find new spaces and all that jazz. So here we shot everything exterior.
At the Disney Ranch.
At Disney Ranch and a couple other places. So we shot their house and and all of the changeovers to all of the like
everything that was in the town.
Like yeah, and how to make it like, because we had to shoot one location, but then we had to switch that whole location to make it look like it was from a different time. So I would leave set and it would be the 50s, and then I would walk on set at 6 a.m. the next day and it would be the 80s.
Yeah, there on Disney Plus, there was a behind the scenes featurette where I guess it was like a full episode, but they actually talked about how they basically had one day to like redress. So like the thing that immediately comes to mind would be the town square stuff, because that happened in all the different eras. And so that makes sense that it was, but you had said that they got most of the interiors they'd gotten done in Atlanta. And had they were they filming like in March, and that was when they had to sort of like pause like most productions did?
Yeah, they were one of the first productions to pause.
Right.
I think they stopped shooting when the quarantine like started, when everyone was like, we're shutting down this, we're shutting down this, we're shutting down this, and film was one of them. And they're just like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I know with Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was a little trickier because they're like, well, we have to go to Prague and Budapest, and at least this show was like, well, we just need like a park in the middle of a town so we can figure that out.
And I think that's why they flipped it, because I think Falcon was supposed to be first, and then it was supposed to be Wanda. Yeah. I think Loki was always supposed to be like that where it was, but I think it was like that's why they switched it.
But Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first one. Well, and I had talked to Alexa a little bit about this when she was on the Blackcast, sort of doing this, these COVID protocols and how important it is, for productions to stay open, because we've heard of a lot of productions. I mean, the Batman movie that they're filming in the UK, like the one guy you can't have test positive for it was Robert Pattinson, and he did. So, then it's like, all right, well, I guess we can film some Batman stuff without Batman. But so it's very important.
Up until a certain point, you kind of need your dude.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I think a lot of people heard the leaked audio of Tom Cruise just really laying into these crew members, and I think that. Oh no, I'm gonna say I'm on Tom Cruise's side on that, because it's like, what do you guys think we're doing? There's so much money riding on that in terms of people working, and then yes, the studio wants to put out a movie and all that, and then it's like, if somebody gets sick, but if something happens because people are careless, so It's important. So it's not surprising that you're saying 14 of you, right, Kait?
Yeah. So I was like near the tail end of it all, and by then I think the crew had just like resigned itself to. All right, it's just. I think I got yelled at once by somebody because I asked them to put their mask on, but otherwise people were actually really good about it, and everybody was just used to it by then. But there was some pushback because it's hard. I mean, it is hard to keep your mask on at all times when you're dealing with like heavy machinery, when you're trying to communicate.
Right.
Like it does get difficult. So like I understood, but also at the same time, like literally our only job was to make sure that people stood 6 feet apart, had their hand sanitizer and everything, and kept their mask up. So I mean, we were essential, but also kind of annoying.
Yeah. We were like, I think one of our friends said it like, I feel like we're like the not cool kids of school. Yeah. Like we're trying to be the cool kids because we're still like productions.
You ladies were definitely the hall monitors. You know,
we were like, so like, if this was Harry Potter, we're what's his name, Percy? Yeah, we were Percy. You were Percy, 14 Percy. And then, but the interesting thing that I found, and I don't know if you found this, was that it allowed, because normally on sets, like you do your job and then you go back to your cart, and then you do your job and you go back to your cart, and then you get yelled at by production or talked to by production, and it's like nice. Like it's nice yelling, and then you joke around, and then you go back to your cart.
Yeah.
But because we're kind of in charge of everybody, and we're like, one of the things that I like to do is I like to just have sanitizer on my belt, and then just between setups, just go around and, and it allowed you the opportunity to talk to people. Mm-hmm. So as someone who really wants to make movies, and I'm like, I'm trying to help you. And when you came at it from, I'm trying to help you, and people were just, standing around talking, I was realizing, and a lot of people came up to me, a lot of the grips especially were like, we don't really get to talk to a lot of people because we just like put this and then leave. Like we kind of just like do our job and then go back to what we're supposed to be doing, or we're getting ready for the next setup. Mm-hmm. But because we have to be so careful, and because we can't really like go as hard as we want to or go as fast as we need to, because we, need to communicate or need to stop or need to social distance, people were cross-pollinating who wouldn't normally have been in contact with each other. And so it actually allowed for like a different type of on-set relationship. So I actually went back to Disney Ranch for another project, and I kind of looked at everyone who was on that show, whether they were health and safety or grips. And I were like, yeah, this was really nice actually. And it was like allowed for like, we actually had some really good memories there, even though it was really hard for a while.
In terms of, I feel like the fundamental way that the set operates is that there must be some degree of testing. And how often were you personally tested, both of you? And, was it the same for actors? Were they tested more often, less often? What was that part of the protocol like?
So testing protocol is based on your zone. Mm-hmm. And basically, if you are going to be around an actor without their mask on, you are automatically in the A zone or the hot zone. And you have to get tested 3 times a week. So I was tested nasal swab, brain, and my brain got tickled 3 days a week. If you were in staging or helping, and you might come to set every once in a while to like put in a piece of equipment, but you were mostly at the trucks or mostly doing other things, you were zone B and you were tested once a week. And then zone C was also tested once a week. And that's like, you will never come to set ever. And then if someone needs to drop something off who's not in A zone, they had to wait outside of set. And they had to call who they were dropping stuff off to come to them, grab the item, and then walk back. They could not enter set. So that was also part of our job, is making sure that no one was in the wrong zone.
Right. Yeah.
And everyone was where they were supposed to be, doing what they were supposed to be doing.
Well, for what Alexa said before, that by the time she came on, it was towards the end, but you were there at the beginning. So was there more resistance early on from like, can you like stop giving me, can you stop being the nerd? Can you stop doing all the rules? Or were people understanding for the most part?
People were understanding. We had a lot of people, how do I put this? We had a lot of people who were more nervous in the beginning, and then when they got used to it, they got a little bit more relaxed. It was actually, for me, easier to deal with the people I knew who were going to be a problem the whole time than the changeover of like, we're going to be super anal about this. Everyone's got to win. And then by the end of it, they're like, woo. And I'm just like, no, can't do that. As opposed to like the grip I know is going to try to drop his mask to yell an impression. Right. And then that became a joke. Like, not that it's a joke, but like in terms of dealing with him, in terms of dealing with people. And now he's still one of my good friends. I still talk to
him. Now, Alexa, you were saying that you mostly dealt with actors when you were there. But so that meant so you both got the 3 swabs a week. So that must have been fun.
Olsen do her thing, especially near the end. I got to see Paul Bettany do his thing, and the kids, and oh goodness, Catherine Hahn, who doesn't like when you watch her or being in her eye line. That's like a few actors.
I've heard of.
I understand you want to be distracted while you're trying to like get into it.
I've heard of a lot of actors like that. I know that Vincent D'Onofrio is very much like that, and he's so intense. I'm like, I get it, and I think for Catherine Hahn to be sort of playing this complicated character who's the wacky next door neighbor, but also a 500-year-old witch. I think that you get it, and I mean, look, any actor, if that's part of what their process is like. Stop looking at me. Look at me when I'm on TV. Don't look at me. But
it's also making sure you're still, so that there's nothing distracting. Because it's if you tilt your head or move your eye, it's like that something's happening that's not. Beating the crap out of Elizabeth Olsen.
But Kait, for what you were talking about in terms of stunts, that to me seems like the most complicated thing to do in this era of film and TV making. Because I was sort of starting to wonder, like, are fight scenes going to be like completely different? Are they going to be more CGI than what were some of the specific challenges facing stunts for a show like this during COVID?
I have to say, in case anyone's watching, the stunt team on this show is incredible, and they are incredible artists, and keeping them safe was a huge priority for me, just because they are maskless and they're throwing their bodies, and they have to the stunt double for Wanda was an amazing stunt performer named Cece. And Elizabeth would down to the hand gestures to make sure that they were both correct and they were both in sync with each other. The stunt team was incredible, and so was the rigging team who made it all possible. They're doing movie level stunts for television because that's the look that is now required, because we're used to these big budget films, but now that's the look that Marvel has set. So to transition into television, it's like there's a limited amount of time and a limited amount of resources, even with something like Marvel, because they're doing so much. But it's like when you're trying to take a cinematic, you're in a movie theater, big budget medium, and you're putting it into your laptop or your television at home, and it still has to be the same. It's incredible what they did, and the scene at the end where they're all where all the military comes in, when Sword comes in, it's like we had to shoot that from one side and then reposition them on the other side to make sure that we didn't have 20 people on set. We just kind of reused and repositioned everybody.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it was just that stunt team. We had the main stunt guys that were just the first team stunt team, And then we had all of these soldiers that were, the sword military soldiers handling all the weapons. And then we had the stunt doubles for the kids that were adults that were, tiny. And, they were running around and like hopping up when Speed gets up on to steal all the weapons from the sword agents. And they had to, have her mask off, everyone mask off. It was helpful because some of them had the balaclavas on and they could have their masks underneath. And then she just like ran up over the tank, grabbed all the stuff, and it took like maybe 60 seconds, and then they just ramped it. And then and then they got a shot of the kid with all the weapons and the glasses. But that was a stunt double.
Yeah. For the cinematic quality, I don't know if either of you had a chance to see the premiere of Falcon and Winter Soldier, but the opening sequence to that, it feels like the beginning of a James Bond movie. There's always he's in the middle of some task, some mission that they don't explain to you. It's just like they're in the middle of it, and you're just like, I don't even want to know what they spend on these shows, but I'm just glad that they do. So yeah, and I think that it's going to be tough for anybody who thought that maybe their Disney Plus Marvel project was going to be small. I think now everybody's like, oh no, they're going to be they're going to have to be on par with this show that really there was so much buzz about. And Alexa, I know that you had all these secrets in your head floating around. I'm sure you both did, but you were the one that I talked to about it. So let me ask you first, but Kait, I want your thoughts on this too. But Alexa, how was it to be like, I know so much about this?
I know the secret.
I mean, it was kind of, honestly, I wasn't able, they didn't release the script to me, so all I knew was what I saw. And coming in near the end, I could only piece together so much. Most of the time, I was very confused.
What? Okay, so because I was on second, and I was there the whole time, so I kind of my first week was the reveal of Agatha. Oh, wow. That was my first week, and I was just like,
wow. Okay.
And then my second week was the reveal of Evan.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't say, and it was just they would be at my, we pod together, and it's like, how was your day work? I'm like, great. What did you actually shoot?
So we shot a lot in Times Square. With
final battle.
Like the people coming to, we saw final battle. The scenes where Vision and the two kids are watching Wanda above fighting Agnes, and then Wanda comes back down and is with them. They're all together, all four of them staring up at Agnes. But actually, Wanda wasn't there. They shot that later. Yeah. So it was just Vision and the kids. I saw a lot of Army barrack stuff. I saw White Vision. That was a big reveal. I was like, holy crap. Yeah. Vision's white. What's happening? I saw, so the very last thing that they shot entirely was the scene that took place inside the movie theater, and that was on the Disney lot. That was in the Disney movie theater on the lot. And so I saw, it was a big thing. So the actress that played the alien chick,
Scroll,
yeah, so she was normal first, and they shot the scene, and then they spent, I think it was 2.5 hours getting her into the makeup of the alien chick, and then she comes back out, and they filmed the rest. But that was the last shot of the entire show, so that was cool.
That's funny that the last shot of the entire show, I think, is the last thing we actually see, right? Because
the last thing you see is her in the cabin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That is true. I saw those shots too. I saw her shooting in the cabin. Did they ever include the shot of the kid, her kid dropping a bunch of guns into the lake? Because I saw them shoot that. I didn't know what that.
I don't think they showed that. I think they just they cut that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool watching the show and then seeing the things that I shot in succession out of.
I think it was episode 5, and you're like, I was there.
I was there.
Which was cool for me for the first, because I shot what we call plates, all of the outside stuff, driving up into Westview for the first time, and he takes her out of the car and carries her through. Paul actually had dialogue there, and I don't know if he was just making it up to like keep the scene going. And if you were brilliant, I love Paul.
Yeah,
love Paul, love Lizzie, love Catherine. Like
it was
the best.
really freaking cool from an actor standpoint to sit and watch all those people work. Like, even though it was like far away, I would still sort of like position myself in a way where I could watch the director, see what he was seeing on the screen, and then he'd go up and talk to them. And I just like would position myself to like try to hear as much as I could possibly hear and watch their processes. And it was dope. It was really cool to see.
I've learned
learning experience.
Yeah, and I've learned on the shows that I've worked on that it's almost not about what you see, it's about what you hear. And even if it's just about the rhythm of how this machine works, it's still valuable and it's still amazing to watch everything kind of come together. And if it starts to slow down, why is it slowing down? And a lot of, whether it's the joke is on set, is you hurry up to wait and you hurry up to wait.
Sure.
But once you understand why, it makes a lot more sense, especially because being on second unit, we were waiting for safety. Like, not just for COVID safety and making sure people were safe, and before they went into the zone, you had to wear goggles, you had to wear face shields, especially with your, especially with people with their masks off, whether you were an actor or a stunt performer or a background. We love our background actors. They did amazing. And especially the ones who were there the whole time.
Yep.
Like Dottie and who played Sarah Proctor, which I want to just throw in there. That's a Salem witch trial reference, which good job, Marvel, for throwing in a Salem witch trial reference. She was one of the witches.
Nice.
Yeah. I realized that halfway through the show. I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Just out of personal curiosity, was there a cool wrap gift or swag or anything for you ladies?
My sweatshirt's in the washing machine.
I should have worn that. Yeah, we both got cool hoodies. I didn't feel like I deserved my cool hoodie,
and
but
then
I got one.
And then I got this from a lovely.
Oh, sweet.
That was a little pin. And then behind me is the hat.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And then I got one from the stunt team, which is pretty cool. And then we got second unit got its own hat because we're cool.
Oh, okay. So Alexa, you don't have that hat, do you?
I don't have the cool hat, but I do have the cool hoodie.
That's right. Yeah.
And I got chocolates, and I got.
You did get the chocolate. You got socks?
I got socks too.
I want socks.
Don't hurt me.
Were they like Vision's feet socks, or what? What do they look like?
That was so cool. Vision,
right?
Yeah, like the animated drawings of them in the beginning. Of
oh, sure. Yeah,
that's cute.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I loved all of the music in the show. I think they did a really fantastic job with everything. I think it was really well done.
The music was fantastic, and if you've had a chance to watch that feature on Disney Plus about behind the scenes, just the composers were just so excited to have this kind of like fun, unique project, and that was the takeaway when we were talking about this show after the final episode aired, was just that people were excited about it because it was so different. People seemed legitimately happy. They were passionate about it because it was this awesome project. And people talk about Marvel stuff all the time, but the fact, like the people who were talking about WandaVision when it first premiered the first few weeks, they're not the people who I usually see on Facebook talking about Marvel stuff or any superhero stuff,
I think that's because we had run out of stuff to watch, and so more people were tuning into something that they wouldn't have normally watched because it was new, and also it was cool throwbacks, and it was different. A lot of things that I saw on social media were like, I think this is Marvel's weirdest show, and then people that had watched Legion were like, no, Legion's weirder. I'm pretty sure Legion is weirder than that. I would say Legion's definitely weirder.
Yeah, but I think
the formula,
because this is post Thanos, and then you get the epilogue with Spider-Man, and then we don't have anything. So this is like the first thing to come out dealing with the fallout of the main Avengers team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had our chance. And the reason I say, for me, it's the epilogue, Spider-Man Far From Home, is like we actually get to deal with Tony's death through Spider-Man. But we need to start dealing with the death here. And I love that I love that Marvel conceptualized this project to begin with, and they had an amazing creative team that were on set. They were very, very active. But what was amazing to me was that they pushing this first actually, I think, benefited the rest of the Marvel universe into phase 4 and phase 5, because they started with a show where it's a woman mourning loss. Mm-hmm. It's a woman in mourning trying to deal with post-traumatic stress, the loss of a loved one, multiple loved ones, and how do you deal with grief? Mm-hmm. And it was so good. And it was nice to start off with not knowing anything about Falcon and Winter Soldier quite yet, but it was nice to start off with, like, we're still in this mode of how do we grieve all of these losses. And I think that, like, after this year, I think that was an important thing to, like, refocus on, and how to do it healthy, adding magic and adding all of these things where it's like, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, you still have to go through it. And I think that's and the genre switch and the period drama and, like, the things that affect your life and how those help you through it. And, like, we're nerds and we love to break down shit. Like, she's super smart. And, like,
I call this one Hermione. Don't let her fool you. She's intelligent.
But it was, I think more people were engaged in the content because it was something that because it was a one-off, because it was about because it was intriguing. It's like, I don't even know what this is, but I'm interested enough to keep watching, as opposed to, like, writing it off as another superhero thing, because it wasn't about her being a superhero.
No, it was, like you said, it's about dealing with loss. And yeah, I think when you think about the fact that Endgame came out almost 2 years ago, and prior to WandaVision, the only thing we had was Spider-Man Far From Home. It was both this show and the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. They're, like, the only things we've had, like, dealing with, well, what happens to the fact that, half the population blipped away for 5 years. And there's some real earthbound problems that Falcon has to deal with because he was gone for 5 years. And I think it's like, oh, it's interesting, because it's the stuff that you don't think about. And I think it's great that we are finally getting, we were supposed to get a movie almost a year ago. We were supposed to get the Black Widow movie, but that wouldn't have even dealt with it, because that was set earlier. So it's great that we're finally getting to see all of these things. And
I don't know about you. Sorry to interrupt you, Christian, but to bounce off of what she just said about grief, I think one of the most profound lines was the one that Vision said. I've never experienced loss because I've never had a loved one to lose, but what is grief if not love persevering? Like, I remember when he said that, I wasn't there for filming that, but when he said it in the show, I was like, oh God, that, like,
I had to pause. I think I was just like, yeah.
It was one of the best lines I think has ever happened. This line is literally perfect and encapsulates grief so well. Just the process of grieving a loved one. I was just like, oh, that was perfect. And
and I think in a series of films and television shows where it's about, how do I put this? We're used to seeing heroes, but very rarely do we have a show of people being brave. And it takes bravery to, like, love somebody. And it takes bravery to lose that person and go through that. And then even it takes bravery at the end, like that final scene, for as much as that, as much as that, like, I did have certain, like, questions about, like, why certain plot moments in the last episode move too fast, and then everything slows down for that final scene, which I'm really glad I wasn't there on set for, because I would have fucking lost my mind. And it was just like the COVID officer would have just been crying in the corner going, everything's okay. But when he turns the light back on and he's just like, nobody should say goodbye in the dark.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he's like, I think I heard that somewhere. And it's like, no, you didn't. And she knows because it's her part of the Mind Stone that's inside of her. So it's like they're so connected.
And I think those moments, and there were brief moments between them in Avengers movies, and and whenever I would see them together in an Avengers movie, I was like, oh cool, we're like getting something with them, because I know we'll never get a Vision and Scarlet Witch movie, and I was right. But I didn't imagine we would get a TV series where we get like more than 6 hours of really diving into the character, and it's like it's so much better because it's such a rich relationship, and you're dealing with the nuances, which there's no time for in a movie, because something needs to explode in the next 20 minutes,
I remember thinking like Elizabeth Olsen was good, but I didn't really care that much about her in the movies. I was like, man, she's okay. And then she steps into this role, but I mean, basically the whole show revolves around her. And I thought, honestly, I loved her performance. I thought she was incredible in this, and I think she deserves an Emmy for her work.
I agree.
in this show, because it was so nuanced, so grounded, and I just have so much respect for her as an actress. I think she did an amazing job.
And she went through the whole cycle of grief in 9 episodes. It's like, we got it.
And Paul Bettany, I've always known Paul Bettany to be a great actor, but I also thought he did a great job.
Yeah, and
Paul, Lizzie, and Catherine too are some of the kindest, most dedicated actors I've had the pleasure to witness and work with, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to like be a part of that story and be a part of keeping them safe, because they are some of the most amazing people, and you can see the love they have for this project. This wasn't just like a project that someone takes because they're like, oh, I just need the money, or oh, I guess I'm contracted to. Like, you could tell they really loved it and they really wanted to be there, and it was just really cool. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if like by the end of it, I think they were just like ready to go home, but like I feel like there was a sense of being on set where it's like, oh, it's over. Like it's like in middle of the show, you're like, oh my God, when are we done? And then by the end of the show, you're like, no.
I forgot to mention Jimmy Woo. Yes. So since I was near the end, I saw a lot of what he did too, and I didn't think he had as big of a role in it as he turned out to, and that was partially because of how he was on set. Like, the bigger actors, they stay in their trailer for the most part, and they usually have like an entourage of people, especially with COVID surrounding them, making sure that they're safe and not being interacted with. But like Jimmy sort of just like sat near the crew and like in a small little fold out chair and just like interacted with people, was like super cool and chill and relaxed.
That's so amazing.
It didn't occur to me that he had as big of a role in this that he did. And I think that's just a testament to how down to earth and awesome of a person he is, that he's not like, highfalutin.
I don't know, it's kind of breaking COVID protocol, but whatever. Yeah, we were very protective of our actors, and especially the first team, what we call first team. Our main actors would come to set, do the work, and then go back to their trailer immediately, just to make sure that they weren't exposed. Because if we didn't want a Robert Pattinson situation where we would lose somebody, because God forbid. So we tried to limit the amount of contact tracing that we would be around them as much as possible. And it did get a little dicey because Paul had to be protected more than anybody, I feel. I mean, we protect everybody equally. But Paul, because of the makeup, could not wear a mask all the time. So he had to have the shield. Like, he had to have a shield that hung around his neck and went like this high, because he couldn't, whether he was white vision or normal vision, couldn't actually put anything on his face.
Speaking of his makeup, that was the most fascinating thing from the behind the scenes, that for the black and white episodes, that they couldn't paint his face red because it didn't look right. So they painted him blue because it looked like red in black and white, but when it was blue, and just like those little details. So, I mean, you must have seen all sorts of little things, maybe not as, quite on that scale. Are there anything that stands out for either of you? Like, oh, wow, like this is how they did that. I mean, I think a lot of us know that when people fly, they fly on wires and things like that, but there must have been some smaller details that maybe you noticed being on set. I think I stumped you.
No,
there's just so much, and I'm just like
the reveal sequence when she like becomes Scarlet Witch and she's in her outfit and stuff. I mean, all of that was done on green screen, and she was on this little platform thing, and they had fans hitting her, and she just did her thing with a huge green screen surrounding her, almost like an arena of a green screen. And Agatha, Catherine Hahn, same deal. Like they switched them out, and they did a lot of those scenes outside in that arena with a green screen behind them. But like, I don't know, like, what are we talking about? Things that on set details, or like how they did stuff details? And also just on the point of view of that costume, as another female creator, I gotta say, like, that was probably one of the coolest costumes I've seen in any universe. Yeah.
And I love that she was sexy without being sexualized. Right. So way to go.
Yeah, didn't she make a comment about the costuming of the character, like early on, like the first Avengers? Like she had like a bustier and was like super sexy and stuff. I think Elizabeth Olsen actually made a comment on like the costuming of it, and like how we should be more we shouldn't sexualize women as female superheroes as much.
Yeah, and I love that. Like I think I turned to somebody because I know the costume department is just like, I could see kids wearing this at Comic-Con. They can go high, and it's functional.
You have to consider that. I mean, I know comics don't consider it at all. Like most of the women in comics are like half naked.
I think we're getting better though.
But we are getting. This is a testament to the fact that we are getting better at the functionality of female superhero costumes.
And I think it's the functionality of women, and as I mean, we've had female superheroes, for 50, 60 years, but more than that. Thank you, all the comments below that are telling me I'm wrong. But we've had female superheroes for quite a while, but their function in the story hasn't always been the way it has. And I think we're changing the function of women in there and making them their own story. I mean, I think I really enjoyed WandaVision and Westview, WV, as a little kind of nod, as a little detail. The people who have caught what all of the Easter eggs in there. My favorite Easter eggs tended to be, because I was shooting them, I really liked the movie changes, the changes on the marquee, and what they signify for every era. And I think my favorite one is the last one, which got its own shot. I was so excited, which was Tannhauser Gate. And I think that was my favorite because it's the only one that wasn't a real movie.
Oh, I didn't even catch it. Oh, no, I did see that. It's a reference from Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And it's from Rutger Hauer's speech that he ad-libbed.
Yeah.
Being a synthetic. So it's, Vision being taken, and he's about to die.
Yeah.
So, but it's also a little bit of the gate opening, because the hex is now open and it's going to go into the multiverse. So like it does a few things while being a really cool reference point, which I really enjoyed.
That time to die speech from Blade Runner is pretty amazing. I forgot that I did actually see that, but I there was so much to take in, and I didn't have a notepad, and I was like, wait, was there really a movie called Tannhauser Gate? So, that's one of those things that I've seen more, in like the articles that are like, here's all the Easter eggs you missed. And so I would see what some of the marquees were, and having that attention to detail must be fun, because you sure could just put whatever you want up there and not have it matter, and I don't think it's going to change the episode in any way. But when
and all of the shops changed, like all of the shops with like oranges on the outside, and like the jukebox inside that you will never see, and like there's a appliance store, and then like a television store that changes every time, every episode. All of the shops change. They're all in the same position, but they just upgrade. And then it's almost sad that her version of events, when it goes back to current times and she walks through the town, it's dirty and it's like desolate. Like, the military took over, but even as she's driving through the first time and you see the pool with all the stuff in it, it's like kind of like disheveled and forgotten about. And then she takes over and it becomes this like beautiful place. And it's almost sad when it turns back.
Oh yeah, well, when it turns back to New Jersey,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all right. Most of my family's from New Jersey, so I'm allowed to. It's okay.
You're allowed to. Yeah.
I'm in Jersey. I was born in Neptune.
Oh my God.
But I thought, I mean, of course, their attention to detail in this show I thought was amazing, and I also really loved the title. It's WandaVision. Of course, it's about Wanda and it's about Vision, but it's Wandavision, like her vision.
Yeah.
It's just like there's so many like little
and
things.
television.
And television. And
which I think is a big part of how people were able to really, really enjoy this, is because it's like, do you like superhero movies? It doesn't actually matter, because if you like television, you'll certainly appreciate those first 3 episodes in particular. And the fact that they actually shot that first one in front of a studio audience, and they
wish I was there for that, but I was not.
Yeah. No, that was Atlanta.
Oh, that was Atlanta. Cool.
And I really enjoyed, I was there for when they pulled Agatha, when she was it was Salem 1690.
Oh, yeah.
And they were pulling her through the woods. And like down to like, do we need to change her? Because you could see her hands, but there was a like, did we need to change her toenail color? She had just gotten her nails done. Did she need to be barefoot on the ground or not? And it was like those types of questions were kind of incredible to go through and watch happen, even though you're, put your mask on.
Yeah. Sort of what we were talking about before, it's great to think about the fact that this show existed, from the sense for, if you look for Paul Bettany, I think he could have expected that after Infinity War, he might never play Vision again, because logically, I mean, it would have stood to reason, but to not only get to play him again, to play 2 of him, but also really get so in depth. And I think they did a great job bringing in some of these side characters. You were talking about Jimmy Woo, Randall Park, who's great,
and Darcy Lewis.
Yeah, and getting her, who I think they said that they had more planned for her, but and in the in the finale, I think all she does is she just runs a truck into the.
She runs the ice cream truck and says, "Have fun in prison."
Yeah, that's
great line. Love that.
Which, by the way, when we were covering the show week to week, we would talk about what we wanted to see, in the future. And the one thing that I thought would have been pretty amazing is if when Darcy went through the hex, when we saw her the next week, because that was the 2000s. So if she'd been in a waitress uniform with the name tag Max, playing her character from Two Broke Girls, I thought that's what I wanted. And then it didn't happen, but that's right. It's also Disney didn't own that show, so that's probably. But those little things, just like people are like, well, now it's an ice cream truck. Now it's a circus tent and all of that. I thought that it was so creative, and just getting the opportunity to really explore characters. Like, I'm sure Jimmy Woo will be in the next Ant-Man movie, but how many minutes is he going to get?
Same thing. He did the little magic trick.
I know he's better. He's learned the magic tricks. So it's like these characters are getting and we didn't see Darcy even in the 3rd Thor movie. So, who knows, so it would be great.
Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder. Yeah.
Thunder. I still don't like that.
No, we're on the same page.
It's from one of the older comic books. And if you watch the Ragnarok, they released an alternate scene of when Odin dies. You can see Thunder and Love as a rock concert poster in the background. So they were projecting it way early.
See, even I didn't see that detail, so that's actually pretty cool. But
yeah, and then they didn't like the scene. They didn't think it's enough for Odin's character, and so they just took her moment and then put it in Norway or wherever.
Well, I still don't like that title, but it's cool.
That's fine. That's fine. But it's also Taika, so we love it.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not worried about that film at all. I just love the title. But
something you said about like when you were talking about Jimmy Woo, we were learning magic. Like this whole thing is about tricks and about like trying to transform something into not what it is, and like or get out of something, as Jimmy Woo did. But even magic doesn't really work on transforming the big thing, which is grieving. But what's exciting for Paul is that, because I call him cataract instead of white vision because it just feels easier, cataract and vision. But when he does that, I love that scene, great scene, where he kind of inputs the memories and he flies away, and it's like he might have another iteration, and so it's like his journey will keep going and it will be completely different. And how is Wanda going to react to that?
Yeah, because we talked a little bit on the show. When the White Vision showed up in the comics, I mean, it was a completely different character. He had gotten so human, and then they sort of basically reset him. I think it'll be great, and that was sort of annoying. Was that was like the complaint that people had was like, well, where did White Vision go? And I'm like, oh, so you think that this story is not going to continue in another movie or series of movies? Like, anytime you have a question in something that's part of, what is it? It was 23 movies, and now there's going to be these TV series and more movies. And it's like, so you think that we'll never see that White Vision again? Like, what a crazy thought like that would
Loki be. Dies in Infinity War, and we have a show now. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's you never have to.
He dies.
What's that?
He dies.
Oh yeah.
I do have to say that even though I worked on it, and I saw a lot of moments, like Agatha was my first week, and Evan Peters was my first week, and White Vision was my second week. And I had to hold on to that forever. Thank God it's out. So now I can it doesn't make the show any less magical. And it doesn't mean I'm not still finding things as a fan. And so it's like, I feel like they really made the show as smart as the fans were. And they kind of tapped into something. And I think that's what people appreciated, even if they were wrong. That's what I was getting from like Facebook and Instagram. It's just like, even when I was wrong about where they were going, I was still happy that they went somewhere. Because it's like, being unexpected was more valuable because it made me think about it. And then I'm like, oh, it could be a different way.
Yeah. We had people who were upset, like, oh, so we didn't introduce the Fantastic Four, the X-Men. And I'm like, well, why did you think that was going to happen? Just because it would be cool? Like, and I think that when we first saw, Evan Peters as Quicksilver, it's like, oh my God, what does this mean? And then it's like, actually not as much as you thought it did, but then as when we talked about this on the panel was like, well, so far that's what that means. But, all these stories continue. So, Alexa was talking a little bit about this, and Kate, you worked on it longer, but what was it like to actually watch the show and like, oh, okay. Cause as much as you knew about it, I'm sure there was plenty that you're like, oh, this is how it all fits together. So that must've been, just as fun as for those of us who hadn't seen anything. Right.
So the first two episodes I actually didn't work on. I mean, I did the plates and I saw him like do the opening where he puts her through the door and they do that really great Dick Van Dyke joke. The whole thing is Dick Van Dyke. It's inspired. But it was nice watching it. We watched it together. I think most of it we watched together. But the first 2 or 3 episodes, because it was all interior, I mean, I didn't know what was happening. And I could I've watched it again since then all the way through. And you can see the moment where like she realizes and she wakes up of like, oh shit, I'm controlling everything. And it's when in the 70s episode, when she actually uses her powers fully for the first time to eject Monica. And she turns around and she sees dead Vision.
Yeah.
It's like you can see those moments. And it's just like, for me, I was just like, because I hadn't witnessed it on set, it was like, whoa, what is happening? Who are you? Is dead? but you're alive, and I don't understand why.
Like I said, none of them did the script.
No.
So we just saw these visuals here. Interesting about how, because I came in near the end, how we got from first episode to like all the stuff that I saw near the end. I was like,
and she's like texting me like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "I have no idea." Which part? Which? Yeah. What? I don't know.
If Kait, if you had to be on set for your next job at like 4 a.m, does that mean you didn't do what most of us did?
I am on set at 4 a.m.
Yeah. Still working on stuff.
Did you? Does that mean that you didn't stay up till 1 a.m. watching the episodes when they premiered? Did you have to like actually wait to watch them?
I watched them on Friday nights. That's when I watched them.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
away from Facebook and
just like, well, that's kind of the joy of being on set is you can't really look at your phone. And I'm just like, cool, no spoilers, that's great. And not that anyone would watch it. I mean, I think only the catering guy would be like, "Have you watched the newest episode?" And I'm just like, "No, Jason, no." Like, I've been working. I don't get off at 3.
The catering guy would be like, "Oh, there's a dinner scene where you're gonna just really like the way that the forks are arranged. It's the most thing I've ever seen. It's just a different attention to detail." Well, let me ask both of you, because I think that a lot of people saw this as a one-off, but I see a lot of different ways where I think that this is not a show that they would do another season of in like a year or so, because the next time we see her is supposed to be the Doctor Strange sequel. But after that, I don't see any reason why they couldn't do it wouldn't be the same conceit as this, but it would still just be like be more of Wanda's story. And I kind of hope that she's not just relegated to, being a supporting character in, other people's movies. So do you how do you both feel?
See a Wandavision too. I think this is a full and complete story. Like we don't always have to have sequels. I think her story is going to continue on in other stories, but I don't see a movie being made primarily about Scarlet Witch.
I think the genius of the way that Marvel has conceptualized their whole phases is that they're treating it like a comic book, where it's not like, oh, this is the end of the movie and that's it and that's all I have to think. It's like one bleeds into the other, and if you watch all of them, you get the whole story as if you were reading. They're treating movies like they're treating comic books. Mm-hmm. So this is like a one series, one shot of a comic book. Like if you watch Loki, if you read Loki Agents of Asgard, which I highly recommend, great one-off series. But we're treating it like these smaller, like independent, even though it's big, but independent comic series that add to the greater story of what's being done in the films. So if there is another Wanda show, I don't think it's going to be WandaVision. I think it's going to be Wanda and another character at whatever point in the story they land, and we're going to get another version of it. But if they do, hire me. I'm working it.
And then sort of our final point is something that came up I'll keep it vague. A friend of a friend actually had trouble watching the show. Somebody who's not a fan of superhero stuff, because this person, a woman, she really found it hard to watch Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany in scenes together because of their age difference. And I just saw it as like as somebody who's known those characters, for, I don't know, since I was like 7. Those characters were in comics, and I was reading them. And so I don't think of him as Paul Bettany. I think of him as like, well, he's like a robot. I mean, technically he's like 2 years old, and
he's synthezoid.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, just the general sense of like robot,
he's a robot.
I mean, he's like a manufactured being, so he's not that old. He just looks that way, but it just took her out of it. And I'm wondering sort of what either of you think about it. Is it something to consider? Because what she said is that like, well, it normalizes the age difference. And I can say my thoughts as a man who's much closer in age to Paul Bettany than I am to Elizabeth Olsen. But
Right.
Is that something that to me, I feel like, women, choosing to be with someone that might be, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than them is certainly something that no one should be trying to stop them from. But what do I know?
I think for older guys and younger girls to get together anyway, in like Hollywood in real life. I like seeing the opposite happen when like the Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles situation. I'm like, yeah. You go, girl. But
Harry Styles, Olivia Wilde's a fucking beast, dude. And
Well, no, I think everybody likes that except Jason Sudeikis.
Basically, no, but a thought didn't occur to me at all when I was watching WandaVision. I was like, oh, Elizabeth Olsen, so young with a very old Paul Bettany, because what is he like? What is he in his 40s?
He's in his 40s, and she's in her 30s.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. If that's what you're focusing on, then you're not in it.
It's the same age difference as my mom and my stepfather. And honestly, I think it all, as with everything, it can't be a blanket statement. It all depends on context. Yeah. And another movie came out this year that got a lot of heat for that, which was Mank. And it was because it was a real life story and a real life woman, and they aged her under.
Oh, well, that's a problem.
Which, is it talent based, or is it, did they just look at women in that age range? There's plenty of actresses of that age range of the real life wife who could have played opposite Gary Oldman.
Sure.
So that got a lot of flack. And I can understand where this mystery friend is coming from, because I also look for that myself. But I think in this instance, it's about context, and it's about choice, and it's about the scene where I would recommend your friend watch just the scene where they start connecting in Avengers Tower, and what makes them connect and what puts them on the same page is like her watching that television show and like her trying to explain it to him and then him finally getting it. And then that's where the love is, what is grief but love persevering line comes in. And you can see two people who are very alone find connection with each other. And I think regardless of age, connection should be celebrated. I don't think it should be like, and she was never overly sexy.
Underage. She's not underage.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And I think she was treated with respect.
Yeah.
She was treated like a queen by him.
Yeah.
He was respected by her, and he was treated like a king by her. And so it was a respectful relationship, and it didn't feel like it was disrespectful or that anyone was being used, which is, I think, the worry of these age gaps.
Or fetishized
or whatever. And I think it has to do with context. We cannot take things out of context. We can't just say this person is this age and this person is this age, so this is okay. And if it's a woman, it's this and this, and this is better. It's all about context, and it's all ultimately at the end of the day, are people being respected, or are they connecting?
Yeah. And look, I mean, there's a 7-year age difference between my wife and I, but we met when we were both in our 20s. And so it's like, okay, so what's a big deal? What's not a big deal? And I think for, obviously it's fictionalized, but you don't think
or you're 15 years older than me, I can't jive with you. There's no way.
I think that if, it's not like the first time that Wanda sees Vision, she's like, well, this is what's missing from my life. And watching her sort of unexpectedly fall in love with this person who's really not a person when she meets him, is like, to me, it's oddly, it's always been sort of one of my favorite love stories. I mean, you held up that pin earlier, and that's from the Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries in the 80s that I loved, when they move out to the suburbs in New Jersey. Actually, they move out of Avengers Mansion, and she gives birth to twins. And
this is the whole story. This is what happens.
I always loved that story. And I was like, well, we're never going to get that. That sort of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I was like, well, we're never going to get the Vision and Scarlet Witch movie. And I was like, this show gave me all the stuff that I always liked about them, and I actually don't like having her dark turn and then him turning into White Vision. I'm like, no, I like them when they're happy and they live in the suburbs, So I was glad at least we got that a little bit, even though it happened that way. But anyway, I just figured since I had two women on the show, I thought I would ask your thoughts, because I thought that this opinion, I was like, I can't even wrap my head around where this is coming from. But that's why I was like, well, let me try and get somebody else's perspective on it. But I don't know. I see Vision and Scarlet Witch. I see WandaVision as to me, it's a beautiful love story that I don't think you're looking for when you see these characters in Age of Ultron. I don't think anybody thinks like, oh yeah, this is gonna work.
Or even at the beginning of Infinity War, when you see them in Scotland together, and it's just like, I just feel you, and you have that moment, that heart-wrenching moment where she tries and she's like, I don't feel you. I can't feel you.
Yeah.
And it's just heartbreaking. And it's like, you also realize, I just realized in any of the movies, they've never said goodbye to each other. That scene was the time they got to say goodbye, which is what she needed to kind of close this chapter. But as I really like that you mentioned that it's a love story, because we get 9 episodes of love, and we don't, when normally in action movies and superhero movies, it's about like the action and like what the villain is. And it's like, the villain in the story is grief, and anyone who gets in the way of that. And, anyone who wants to use that power of grief to further their own ends, when it's just like, this woman is hurting and just let her be in pain. But also, how do you be in pain without taking it out on other people? How do you not manipulate other people with your own pain? Are you the bad guy in your own pain? Which I think a lot of people, there's so many questions that are being asked that do not have the time in these normal movies, but shows do.
It's the exploration of grief, which is an amazing topic to cover through the lens of somebody with superhero powers. There's so many movies and television shows about grief, and I love talking about it and delving into what it means to grieve and how to get through grief. But never once have we had a superhero go through grief and like the aftermath of losing somebody and how they deal with it. I mean, we saw with Legion, his trying to figure out what's going on in his brain, like all that falling apart, and like mental illness and stuff. And that was like, I feel like the first time we ever really got to talk about really deep subjects in superhero land. And then this was the second time I feel like we got to actually have something that was true of us as humans, and then add the element of superhero on top of it. It's like a really cool exploration overall.
And we get a second one with Monica Rambeau. And she's dealing with not only blipping out for 5 years, but losing her mom and not being able to grieve her. And then turning into a superhero. So it happens backwards. And there's these 2 women that are both in grief, that come at it of like, one starts as a superhero and then grieves, and one starts in grief and ends up a superhero. And so you have these kind of like women that are all kind of intertwined with the story. And then, I hope that they do the same thing for a male superhero, and I hope maybe they mention it in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think that'll be a really good time.
You should, I think you'll see when you watch it. They really delve into Sam's home life, which we've never seen before, because he's only existed as 1, the Falcon, or 2, as Captain America's buddy. And like, even when he's not in costume, he's sort of, as a foil to Steve. And you really get to see a lot. You get to see a lot for both he and Bucky, and sort of dealing with real issues that both of those characters have had, which, let's be honest, if it wasn't, it's just like with WandaVision, if these characters only appeared in movies, they'd get a few minutes here and there, but you wouldn't really dive into these the way that these shows are. So I think
these relationships wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because you're getting, the main drive was the value shift, the value difference between Captain America and Iron Man. And so a lot of these, and I think Tony Stark and Gwyneth Paltrow's character, Pepper Potts, was like the main romantic story, but that didn't really get a lot of like spotlight in the same way that all of the other ones did. And we got, I think a lot of people, that's why they attached to it. And like, we kind of got Peggy, but then Peggy. Yeah. But then he got frozen for 70 years. And then there was Agent 13, kind of. But I don't really know of any other like romantic couplings. I mean, arguably the only healthy relationship you see is Hawkeye and his wife.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. His like non-superhero wife, which is
his non-superhero wife and his very normal family.
Yeah. Yeah, which is very different than the comic books where he's married to Mockingbird, or at least at the era we're talking about. So yeah, I think it's interesting because sort of what Alexa was saying, in terms of dealing with some of these issues, comic books themselves have time to deal with it. Like Spider-Man is able to deal with not just the death of Gwen Stacy, but the fact that him trying to save her is what actually killed her. And it's just like, it's such a deep, awful kind of pain to have to carry the rest of your life, that, if you'd just let her fall into the Hudson River, she might have lived because you could have jumped after her, but instead you broke her back, and you don't really get a lot of that sort of grief. And I think finding time for it on screen, it's refreshing you really get to understand these characters. And it's hard to imagine somebody watching WandaVision and then, having an opinion, sort of like what you were saying, Alexa, you have an opinion about like, oh, she's all right, I guess. But to then see this show, for somebody to still feel that way, it's like, all right, were you like not paying attention? Because it's like such a rich, deep character, and inarguably the most powerful character in the Marvel universe. I mean, Captain Marvel is powerful in a different way,
and correctly stated by Monica that she could have beat Thanos on her own because she did.
Yeah.
I get why they couldn't give her and Vision a lot of time in the movie. I totally understand that. To get to other things, other more important things, but. The fact that they did through this whole mini series thing, which I think is just super smart of Disney to do these little mini series, and then also at the same time to not release it all immediately, to do one episode at a time. I know a lot of people had issues with the fact that it wasn't bingeable. I liked it. I liked them dropping episode after episode every week and allowing people to ruminate on what they just saw and develop theories and talk about it. This is the way I feel like TV should be ingested, and I'm glad that they reverted back to that old type of.
Well,
you get old now. You get home from work, or you get home from school, and you turn on you watch your show.
Yeah, there's the cynic in me will say like, well, yeah, that keeps people subscribed to Disney Plus for 2 months. But there's also the part of me that what I love is the fact that it kept the conversation going for 2 months. Right. Like people were talking about this show, and other than people who worked on set and had their sneaky behind the scenes secrets in their head, none of us really knew what was coming next week. Just like, we
didn't know what was going on. Really like we kind of knew, but also we're like, how did I get here?
Yeah, and a lot of like what we forget to mention in these conversations is which I didn't shoot at all. I didn't know what they meant, and like I started a little thing on my Instagram, and I started to try to figure out different stuff in films, and I had a whole theory set about the first 4 commercials, and then the 5th one dropped, and I'm like, way to blow up my plan! I had this whole theory that all of and it's probably still true, but it's I'm gonna say it's true. Everything related to a traumatic event in her life, but how they went through it was the Stark poster, the thing, the Lagos spilling of the red juice. It was all the Infinity Stones. And so I was hypothesizing okay, we got 2 stones left. We've got 2 major losses left in her life. We've got Pietro dying and Vision dying. Let's go. And then it was the Go-Gurt commercial. I'm just what? So even that's what but I loved it. I was so angry, but I loved it because it was they let you kind of figure it out, and then they're like, nope, we're gonna go a different way.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the level that the show worked, because it was like, well, what do you think this means? I don't know. What do you think this means? And we were all talking about it, and it was great for a show like this one where we talk about Marvel every week anyway. So it gave us, something new that we, sure, there have been other shows that are Marvel, but I mean, the Netflix shows were all in that binge style, so
and it was very different than Mandalorian, which had this kind of like, on the Star Wars side, you have this like kind of like serial style thing. And I think when you're looking at Disney releasing new content, that's their only kind of fallback is like, oh, is it going to be like Mandalorian? And it's not. And so it's like, we're Marvel, we're our own different thing, even though we're under the Disney umbrella. And just because we now own Fox doesn't mean we're going to use Fox.
I don't like binge culture. Like, I want to revert to just releasing an episode at a time.
Except for Tiger King. Tiger King was worth binging.
Tiger King, fine. Release them all. Let us watch them like all at once.
Let us watch that dumpster fire all at once.
But no, I really like that method of viewing TV. And plus, I can't sit still for like hours on end. I need breaks. I need to like take a moment, and relax, and like shut my brain off.
Let it happen.
Yeah, let it ruminate. Let it think.
And then we turn to each other and go, "What?"
So I'm glad they went back.
Yeah. No, I mean, and look, it makes TV more.
I don't really care. I think that was the way to do it.
Well, it makes TV a more communal experience, when we're all experiencing it in real time.
Real time. Yeah.
And very few shows do that. And I also prefer getting it once a week because I have two small kids. So the amount of time I have to watch TV is very minimal, to the extent that my wife and I watched one Tiger King and we're like, all right, I think we get it. I've never seen the rest. Yeah, that's true.
It's daunting. Like, to catch up on 8 hours, like it feels like every week. Like, okay, guys, tried watching Queen's Gambit. I was like 3 months late because it was just when I was in Queen's Gambit dropped in the middle of filming all this stuff. But I just didn't care. I was like, this is a lot, and it's a lot of drugs and chess, and I'm okay with not having this.
Yeah.
And I think, like, even though the show is about grief, it was still very joyful. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does.
So people who are intimidated or like they don't have a way in because it's 50s and then going into 60s, and it's slightly, the storytelling is not quite what we're used to right now. I would just say keep an open mind and keep going, because now all the episodes are out. You can binge watch them. Do it. Love it. Yeah. Order takeout. But I do know people who haven't watched it for that reason. And the good part about it's not like if you miss an episode of Malcolm in the Middle, you'll never see it again until reruns 2 years later. You can just go watch it.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there probably are episodes of Malcolm in the Middle I still haven't seen, but now I have no excuse. But at least I'll know that Wanda also watched them. In any case, well, look, it's always delightful to talk to Alexa, but now getting to know you, Kait, as well. This has been it's doubly delightful. We
are doubly delightful. That is our superhero name.
Yeah, double delight.
Just spread cheer and joy, and then drop weird opinions, and then leave.
Yeah, that's your superpower, and I'd love to chat with both of you again, and maybe at some point when I actually have my voice back. But there's so much to talk about, and I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts once you see the premiere of Falcon and Winter Soldier, because it's a very different show, and all I'll say is that there's things about it I was not expecting from Disney Plus. So I think
Disney's pushing their medium with these television shows, and I'm really happy with what they're doing, and I think they're I'm treated like an audience member who is very smart, and I think they're treating audience members like they're smart and that they're not kids. And even the kids are being treated like they're not kids. They're being talked to about very important things. And, you know, this is the Disney of like, you know, Renaissance period. Like, this is like, I feel like we're back in like, you know, the Disney Renaissance, but, you know, well, we have Catherine Hahn now, so it's the Renaissance.
Yeah, there's
there is Star Wars okay with Mando. Like, I don't know about the movies, but
and we got Boba Fett, we got Andor, we've got so much happening. So much.
Like 10 series.
All gonna be exciting. Yeah, I think they both got 10.
Yeah. So no, exactly. It's I've never felt smarter than when I prepaid for Disney Plus for 3 years. So you pay for the 2 years and then the third year was free. But now I realize I'm like, wait a minute, I'm already a year and a half into that deal. I'm gonna have to give them money again soon. But in any case, well, I very much appreciate you staying up late and spending some time, even though people see this in the afternoon, and I just gave away that we recorded this at night. But I know I'd done well up until now.
And that's your cinema secret.
Yeah, exactly. But if people want to keep tabs on you, where can they find you? You're talking about your Instagram. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Instagram at Alexa Cappy, Cappy.
You can keep track of me at Cornuelle at Cornellable. And I am starting to release more of these cinematic investigative agent videos where I dive into what I've noticed about films, television, and gaming. So keep track of me there. It's getting that started. It's going to be fun in the middle of all the other stuff I'm doing. And I'm still an active PA on set. Oh, I'm still going to be on set forever. Forever. Forever and ever.
Well, thank you to you both, and thanks to everybody for watching this special bonus episode. Make sure you tune in Friday at our regular time of 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, when Michael, Eric, and Jeff will be reviewing the second episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I will not be there. I will be in Palm Springs with my family. So, but I'll see everybody a week from Friday when we talk about episode 3. Thanks again. And as the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior.